Thank you, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
What's your name again? My name is Bond, James Bond.
Good evening, Mr. Bond fans. The 007 audition process is a closely guarded thing. We often have very few concrete ideas as to who exactly is in the running, until at least one candidate is confirmed as Barbara Broccoli casts the final ballot and white smoke pours from the MI6 building in London and the new James Bond is announced. We know for a fact that a big part of the auditioning process is a relatively glossy screen test where the candidates act out a fight scene as well as a love scene, with the Bond-Tatiana meeting from Russia with Love used for such tests. Over the years, we've seen snippets and stills of such tests from the likes of Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, as well as from candidates that didn't get the role, such as Sam Neill and James Brolin, whose entire screen tests are included on the Octopussy Blu-ray and 2-disc DVD set as viewable extras, so do check those out if you want to be extra grateful that we got a returning Roger Moore in that film. This is obviously a very valuable part of the auditioning process for the producers. It makes a difference to see a Bond candidate on film with the proper lighting, the set design, the costumes, taking direction from the director on set, and so on, and by all accounts, these screen tests are the final phase of the casting process. But such lavish and expensive testing can't be bestowed upon every single James Bond candidate, so these things work in rounds, and as we know, pretty much every handsome actor going, aging from their early 20s to their early 40s, would happily have tiny drills buried into their skulls if it meant that they got even a shot at playing the character. So prior to those lavish screen tests, the casting team will ask contenders to take part in less formal screen tests or indeed submit self-tapes. Candidates will be given script pages and rock up in their own clothes and give it a shot. These things are of course made for the eyes of the filmmakers only, and they never typically see the light of day. They're never meant to be released. Until someone finds them on a VHS tape in a recycling bin at a movie studio and then uploads them to YouTube for the benefit of us all to geek out about. Yes, I do have to thank Ron South, who uploaded these 4 screen tests that we're going to be discussing today. The Henry Cavill one has obviously been the most discussed of these because, well, I mean, he's still a regular name on the who could be the next Bond circuit, and we know from the filmmakers that for Casino Royale, it basically came down to a choice between Cavill and Daniel Craig, so it's very interesting to even have a sliver of a glimpse of a nugget into what his James Bond might have been. But Ron also uploaded tests for Sam Worthington, Anthony Starr, and Rupert Friend, so it's a veritable smorgasbord of James Bond what-ifs. I mean, seriously, thank you so much, Ron South, if you're watching this, for sharing these videos with us. It's an incredibly rare treat to have this level of a peek behind the curtain regarding the Bond casting process, and Bond fans such as myself will forever be in your gratitude. Links to Ron's channel and each of the tests in the video description below. So I'm actually going to be watching the videos for the very first time for the purpose of this video. I've been saving watching these because I knew I just had to make a video about them, and I'm quite excited to be finally watching them. We're going to go through each of the videos in turn, we're going to be talking about how each of the actors did, and at the end of the video, why not, it's YouTube, let's do a little ranking in order of worst to best, in order of who would I be most likely to call back for the second phase of the auditioning process based on these tapes. So without further ado, we are going to get started with the main man himself, Mr. Henry Cavill. Here goes.
Oui, pour la banque.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
1 rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Sweetie. Cat.
5. 6. Bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by.
Some intense eye contact going on here.
So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
I never learned that trick. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. And you?
The same.
And how do you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you. Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Senior on it.
Softly delivered.
On it.
On top.
Your accent, it's Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You have been to Russia?
Not recently, but I used to drop in occasionally, shoot in and out.
Ah, it's very different now. A land of
There's cheekbone flexing going on
In
here.
a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Tip for your friend. The registration plates for the French new models all begin with letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the Motor Vehicles Department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I like women who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
Pleasure, I'm sure, was all.
Okay, do you want to speak up a bit
Thank you.
more? Okay.
It appears we share the same passions. Three,
Oh, same-
anyway.
I
Same one
count
again.
two. Motoring and baccarat.
We pull a bonk.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Sweetie. Cat.
5. 6, bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
I never learned that trick. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. And you?
The same.
And how'd you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Then you're on the top.
On a top.
On the top.
Your accent. Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia?
Not recently. Used to drop in occasionally. Shoot, in and out.
It's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Tip for your friend. The French plates this year begin with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the Motor Vehicles Department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I like women who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine. Banco. It appears we share the same passions.
There's a
Three,
gun on the
anyway.
mantelpiece there.
I count two. Motoring and baccarat.
We pull a bonk.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Sweetie. Cat.
5. 6, bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
I never learned that trick. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. And you?
The same.
And how'd you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Then you're on the top.
On a top.
On the top.
Your accent. Georgian?
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia?
Not recently. I used to drop in occasionally, shoot and out.
Oh, it's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Tip for your friend. French plates this year start with letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold in the Motor Vehicle Department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I like a woman who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine. Go.
Again.
It appears we share the same passions. 3, anyway.
I count two. Motoring and baccarat.
We pull a bonk.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Sweetie. Cat.
5. 6, bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by. So tell me,
It's a bit patronising.
what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
Funny, I never learnt that trick. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. And you?
The same.
How'd you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Then you're on the top.
On a top.
On the top.
Your accent. Georgian?
Very good, Mr. Bond. You have been to Russia?
Not recently. I used to drop in occasionally. Shoot in and out.
Yeah, it's very different now. A land of opportunity.
Perhaps with a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
A tip for your friend. The French plates this year all begin with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
This is a very patronising
What
take.
rank do you hold in the motor vehicles department,
Well.
Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I like a woman who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine.
Interesting. You know what? I came into this, like, if you're a regular on this channel, you'll know that I am not necessarily... I've never necessarily been the biggest fan of the idea of Henry Cavill as James Bond. And I did come into this half expecting to watch this and then be, like, talking about, like, oh god, isn't he wooden and all this kind of stuff. And actually, you know what? I thought that there were a couple of takes in there. Of the 4 that he did, the second and third takes, I thought, actually, you know what? Pretty alright, actually. I do think that it's worth saying as well that these screen tests are obvious, that you're never gonna have, like, a complete performance, like what you would see in a final film in these things, I don't think. I believe that the voice that you can hear who's doing, like, the croupier, the admiral and whatnot, I believe that that's the voice of Debbie McWilliams, who is the casting director for the Bond films. She'll, of course, have been very much involved in this process. And actually, that's quite funny, actually, because I'm pretty sure in one of the Bond movie extras, she does talk about someone potentially going through her bins, and that's apparently how these audition tapes leaked, so maybe she's a prophet.
There was one very spooky time when I was convinced that somebody was going through my rubbish bin or tapping the phone or something, because every person we talked about, suddenly, next week we'd read about it in the paper.
Anyway, my point being that I assume that these will be taped with her and I guess another actress who's doing the voice of Xenia Onatopp. I don't necessarily think that Martin Campbell, the director of Casino Royale, would have been here for all of these. I assume that Henry's probably getting some direction and advice from Debbie McWilliams, and doing different takes with, like I say, that final take, he was sort of snippy and kind of patronising. I don't know if it was just the Karen take of Bond, but she'll be giving him some direction to do some things in different ways and what have you. Obviously, I'm guessing he's worn his own jacket, and obviously his hair would have been shorter, I assume, if he would have played Bond. So I'm just getting all of those caveats out there because when we're looking at these, we are not looking for, like, you know, a final screen performance here. What these tapes really are for the filmmakers to get a sense of the taste, I guess, the texture of the individual actors and whether or not they do want to get them in for further testing. And with all that in mind, I thought that was actually pretty good. I can see, like, watching this, like, if you go back to 2005, whenever they were recording these, I could imagine looking at this and thinking, if you wanted to cast a younger James Bond, like, that is, yeah. And I think it's interesting that they're doing the scene from GoldenEye, of course, where Bond and Xenia are across the table together.
One rises to meet a challenge.
And it makes a whole lot of sense for them to be using that scene, considering that they're casting for Casino Royale, where a big chunk of that film is going to be across the poker table. So it makes sense to use a scene where Bond is gambling. And I also think that this dialogue, you hit a couple of big catchphrases in there. So you hit Bond, James Bond, see how they deliver that. You hit vodka martini, shaken not stirred, see how they deliver that. There's opportunity for bits of... I actually quite liked some of Henry Cavill's, like, side eyes when, you know, to the double entendre of Xenia Onatopp's name and such. I thought he did those moments pretty well. Like I said, there was a lot of, like, jawbone flexing going on there, and I'm not sure how I feel about his, like, eyes never diverting from the one point. I guess that there's probably an acting choice to, you know, get some intensity across and what have you, but I just blink more, damn it. I really found it really disconcerting. But yeah, overall, I thought that was actually pretty good. It's amazing how little Henry Cavill has aged since then. This is like 20 years ago now, and he doesn't even look all that much different. It's kind of crazy. Okay, next up we are going to be looking at the actor that I know second best out of this bunch, I guess, Sam Worthington, who you will probably best know, I guess, from the Avatar films. He's the lead actor in those. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He was in, Clash of the Titans. He's a working actor. He's been in a lot of things. Australian, I think. And I'd heard previously that his name was indeed in the running around this time, but it was one of those things where you hear like so many actors' names are in the running, and there's so much misinformation out there about potential Bond candidates and what have you that I never like entirely believe it, and now I do. So without further ado, let's go into Sam Worthington's screen test, which begins with his name down on a whiteboard, I guess.
Because he goes through a very...
Well, that was an interesting bit of direction there.
Bangkok.
Oh, props. And a blue screen.
Seems we share the same pleasures. Can I start again?
Oh.
So did he speak before they serve it, or? Are you ready?
Did he realise he fluffed up the accent?
Bangkok. Appears we share the same passions. Or three anyway.
I can too. Motoring and baccarat.
Sebi?
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
Well, one has to rise to the challenge.
Double.
Sebi?
He's quite pronouncing that quite right.
Kade?
No, definitely not pronouncing it right.
6 bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, well, that's the rule I live by. And what is the rule that you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
Well, that's a trick that I've yet to learn.
Is he trying to
But
do
you
it?
can show me how to do it. Have a vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred. Have you?
The same.
How do you like to take it?
Straight up, with a twist. Thank you, Mr.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Zinnia
Seems
on
shy
the top.
about it.
On the top.
On the top.
Your accent. It's Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia?
Yours is
Oh,
from
no,
Adelaide.
But on occasion I do like to drop in, shoot in, shoot out.
It's very different now.
There's
A land of opportunities.
land of opportunities, is it? Like there's a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Yeah, well, a tip to your friend. The French number plates for this year's model Ferraris all start with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the motor vehicles department, Mr. Bond?
Commander. Miss on the top.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
You know, I love a lady who pulls rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
Same with you. It was a pleasure. But I fear it's all mine.
Set à la banque.
Does his t-shirt? It doesn't say diarrhea.
Bangkok.
No, it says Radiohead. Why is he wearing a t-shirt that
Seems
says
like we share the same
diarrhea?
passions. Or three anyway.
I count two, motoring and baccarat.
Oui pour la banque.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
Everyone likes to rise to the challenge.
Double.
See they. Card day.
God,
5. 6 bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
That's the rule that I live by. And what is the rule that you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
That's a trick that I've yet to learn. Maybe you can show me how to do it. A vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred. And for you?
The same.
How do you take it?
Straight up with a twist. Thank you, Mr.
No reaction to that?
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Zinnia on a top.
On the top.
On a top.
Your accent, it's Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia.
Huh. On occasion, I like to drop in. But,
Is he ad-libbing this?
Sorry, continue.
Oh, right.
ask me again.
Very good, Mr.
Let me
Bond.
tell you something. Your accent's Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia.
Not really, but on occasion I do like to.
Okay, let's start again. Rolling.
Oh, I think he lost track of the lines.
Okay, my name's Bond. Name's Bond, James Bond.
Zinnia on a top.
On the top.
On a top.
Your accent's Georgian.
Oh, okay.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia.
Not recently. Fuck it.
Oh.
Your accent is Georgian. In fact, your accent. What's your name again? My name is Bond, James Bond.
Zinnia on a top.
Funny.
Your accent Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia.
Not recently. On occasion I like to drop in. Yeah, shoot in, shoot out.
It's very different now. A land of opportunities.
Alright. With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
A little tip for your friend. The registration plates in France for this year's model, they all begin with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the motor vehicles department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I like a woman who can pull rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
Well, my pleasure. Right, now. Come out.
Ooh, interesting. Huh. That little bit at the end there, I wonder if that was him in character, that little look to the ground and smile. That, like, is that in character, or is that him being like, oh crap, maybe I blew this? I mean, first of all, like, the very first take of that, I just kept thinking, like, wow, this would have been a really different take on the character. He doesn't seem to be trying to hide his Australian accent all that much, and I do wonder how much of that was they were just like, you know, we'll work on the accent later. Just do it. We're just, you know, here to get a sense of, you know, your acting style and what have you. But that really stuck out, and then as the video progressed, I really got a sense of him being, and I can appreciate this, it must be incredibly nerve-wracking to be auditioning for James Bond of all things, but like, yeah, I think his nerves were coming through there, and you could tell like he was forgetting some lines and what have you, and seemed maybe even a bit annoyed at himself. I was getting a lot of frustration out of that, so I'm not quite sure how much, because when I was watching it again, I thought like, oh wow, this is quite an aggressive sort of take on James Bond, really, and strangely, like, the moment where he delivered the line and he sort of like looked down and just sort of, you know, it was also like his hands were sort of like, you know, in his lap kind of thing, and it was a very sheepish sort of look that I wouldn't normally associate with James Bond, sort of, you know, with me, yes, but not with James Bond. So I don't quite know how much of that was the actor's nerves and frustration coming through and how much was a deliberate, like, character choice. Interesting audition. I like Sam Worthington for what it's worth. I think he's a perfectly fine actor. That audition, I did not see James Bond in there. Yeah, also I just couldn't quite get past the Australian accent. I never felt like I was watching someone trying to be James Bond in that, and he didn't really have the, like, Henry Cavill did have some like good like side eyes and stuff for the innuendos. I didn't get any humor to Sam Worthington's performance there. Okay, next up we have Anthony Starr, who also has his name written on a whiteboard, it seems. Anthony Starr is an actor that I believe is best known for his role in The Boys. I think my most exposure to Anthony Starr has just been that gif from The Boys that you see everywhere. But in an alternate dimension, could he have been James Bond rather than Homelander? Let's find out.
Action.
Uncle.
The hotel room. He looks like Michael Fassbender, like a young Michael Fassbender.
It appears we share the same passions. 3 anyway.
I count 2. Motoring and baccarat. I hope the 3rd is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet the challenge.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
There's a trick I've never learned. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done.
Lots of head tilts.
There's a trick you've never... There's a trick I've never learned. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini, shaken not stirred. And for you?
The same.
How do you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Senior Honor Top.
On a top.
Honor Top.
Your accent. Georgian?
Very good, Mr. Bond. Have you been to Russia?
Not recently. I used to drop in occasionally. Shoot in and out.
Well, it's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Little tip for your friend. The French registration plates for this year's model begin with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
What rank do you hold with the Motor Vehicles Department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Well, this one's an admiral.
I like a woman who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
Pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine.
It's a slightly different...
Action.
Uncle. It appears we share the same passions. 3 anyway.
I count 2. Motoring and baccarat. I hope your 3rd is where your real talent lies.
One rises to the challenge.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
There's one trick I've never learnt. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini, shaken not stirred. And for you?
The same.
How do you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Name's Bond. James Bond.
Xenia Honor Top.
On a top.
Honor Top.
Your accent. Georgian.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia?
Not recently. I used to drop in occasionally. Shoot in and out.
Well, it's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Little tip for your friend. French registration plates for this year's model start with the letter L. Even the counterfeit
So much
ones.
like Michael Fassbender.
And what rank do you hold with the Motor Vehicle Department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
This one is an admiral.
I like a woman who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine.
Maybe it was just the intensity of the blue eyes or something, or maybe his features, but I was getting a bit of a Timothy Dalton kind of vibe, actually, from him when I wasn't getting Michael Fassbender. I didn't think that was too bad at all, actually. I thought that was pretty solid. I don't know if there was any particular element that stuck out to me, like with both Henry Cavill and Sam Worthington, I felt like I could read a lot more into some of their acting choices, and that I don't know if this one was maybe just a little kind of straight down the line, not making too many terribly interesting or bold choices like the other two did, I don't think. But I thought that was pretty solid. I quite liked it at the end there where he like leaned forward and, you know, to get an extra bit of intensity into that moment. Interesting that this looks to be in a hotel room. Again, the voice, the off-camera voice, I think is Debbie McWilliams. I don't know if anyone can confirm this out there. I assume that she probably went around with some of the video camera and she's, you know, giving them, you know, similar direction and talking them through the scene and, you know, what they should be doing and all that kind of stuff. Interesting that this is, like, it looks like someone's hotel room. This is, I guess maybe she was, maybe not everyone could come into London, for instance. Maybe she was sort of having to, like, go around to find some of these. But yeah, in terms of overall audition, I thought solid, fine, if slightly unremarkable. That would be my capsule summary of Anthony Stark's audition. And finally, we come to our last audition tape, unless anyone else wants to go rummaging through some bins to try to see if they can find out any more. Rupert Friend, who is probably the actor that I am even more less familiar with than Anthony Stark. I say that and then I look at his filmography and I'm like, all right, yeah, no, I've seen The Death of Stalin, I've seen The French Dispatch, I've seen The Ratcatcher, The Swan, I've seen Obi-Wan Kenobi, I've seen this guy in multiple things, it seems, but I do not know this actor well at all. Interestingly as well, I think pretty much all of these actors have been in their mid-20s when they're recording these, which is interesting. Obviously, part of the inception of Casino Royale, they were looking for a younger James Bond, because it was James Bond going on his first real mission as a 00. And then obviously they decided to go with Craig, who was, you know, a fair bit older than some of these actors, like, you know, 15 years older, something like that. So it's, you know, it's kind of interesting just seeing the pool that they were looking at, and how what they ended up with was actually quite different from what they were clearly looking for at a certain point. Okay, so here we go. The last one, Rupert Friend, who, he gets his name on he gets his name typed out on a piece of paper rather than scribbled on a whiteboard. Good for you, Rupert. Okay, here goes.
C'est à la banque.
Banco. It appears we share the same passions. 3 anyway.
I count 2. Motoring and baccarat.
Oui, pour la banque.
Give him blonde hair and he could be one of the Malfoys.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Suivi. Carte.
5. 6. Bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
Now that is one trick I've never learned. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done.
Very posh.
A vodka martini is shaken, not stirred. And you?
The same.
How do you take it?
Straight up, with a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Nice withering.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Xenia on the top.
On the top.
On the top.
Your accent is Georgian?
Very good, Mr. Bond. You have been to Russia?
Not recently, but I used to drop in occasionally. Shooting out.
It's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
A tip for your friend. The French registration plates for this year's model start with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the motor vehicles department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
Would you like a lady who enjoys pulling rank?
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
A pleasure, I'm sure it was all mine.
Swig of the old Evian.
C'est à la banque.
Banco. It appears we share the same passions. 3 anyway.
I count 2. Motoring and baccarat.
Oui pour la banque.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Suivi. Carte.
5. 6. Bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
Now that's one trick I've never learned. Perhaps you'll show me one day. Vodka martini shaken. I'm not stirred. And you?
The same.
How do you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Senior on the top.
On the top.
On top.
Your accent is Georgian?
Very good, Mr. Bond. You have been to Russia?
Not recently, but I used to drop in occasionally. Shooting out.
No, it's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Tip for your friend. The French registration plates for this year's model start with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the motor vehicles department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I like a lady who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
The pleasure, I'm sure, is all mine.
7 à la banque.
Banco. It appears we share the same passions. Well, 3 anyway.
I count 2. Motoring and baccarat.
8 pour la banque.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
Well, one rises to meet the challenge.
Double.
Suivi. Carte.
5. 6. Bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Very words I live by. So tell me, what are the words you live by?
The trick is to quit while you're ahead.
Now that's one trick I've never learned. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini shaken, not stirred. And you?
The same.
How do you take it?
Straight up. With a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Senior on the top.
On the top.
On the top.
Your accent is Georgian?
Very good, Mr. Bond. You have been to Russia?
Not recently, but I used to drop in occasionally. Shooting around.
No, it's very different now. A land of opportunity.
With a Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
A tip for your friend. The French registration plates for this year's model start with the letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the motor vehicles department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
This one is an admiral.
I do like a lady who enjoys pulling rank.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
Pleasure, I'm sure. It's all mine.
Oh, hello. Who was that at the end? I do not recognize either of those guys, but I guess that neither of them were auditioning for James Bond, or maybe? Okay, well, anyway, I thought that was actually pretty good. It's interesting with him. I think more with him than with the other ones. I felt the youth, right? Like, I felt like, how old will he have been when he did this? Okay, he'll have been about, all right, yeah, 24, 25, something like that. So that's, you know, certainly if they'd really have dedicated themselves to the idea that Casino Royale was going to be a young James Bond going on his first mission as a 00, you know, kind of thing. Yeah, no, I could see him actually in the part. Like, his voice is slightly higher pitched than the others, and I think that it looks kind of youthful and kind of boyish, and I felt like he played that quite well, really. Like, you know, like, obviously he's delivering it quite confidently and quite knowingly. I like the confidence that he was exuding in contrast to looking quite youthful and sounding quite youthful. I thought that the juxtaposition worked really nicely. I thought I liked some of his side eyes. I think he was probably the most humorous of the 4 that we've looked at, which, you know, on record as saying, you know, I like my Bonds when they're a bit more humorous, so that, you know, music to my ears. Maybe I like him a bit more because I did get kind of a young Pierce Brosnan vibe from him, and obviously this is the scene from GoldenEye. I'm watching all of these, and in the back of my head, I'm not comparing them to Pierce Brosnan, but in the back of my head, I'm thinking about Pierce Brosnan's choices and how the actual scene ended up in the film. And I feel like he probably did make a choice or two that was very similar to what Brosnan does in the film. Maybe I'm just responding to that, but I thought that was actually really good. I really enjoyed watching that, and like I say, if they'd have really dedicated themselves to a young James Bond, I think I'd call him back for the From Russia with Love test. Okay, on that note, I'm gonna rank them now from, you know, who would be least likely to get the call back from me and who would be most likely to get the call back from me. Okay, so Sam Worthington, I have enjoyed in other things, but I did not think that audition tape was particularly successful. I just didn't get much of a sense of Bond from him. Next up, I'm gonna go Anthony Starr, who I thought perfectly fine tape, some interesting little choices, but overall a little bland, a little middle of the road, I think. In second place, I'm gonna put Henry Cavill, because like I say, I came in here thinking that I wasn't gonna find much enjoyment in his test, but actually I thought that it was pretty good. I liked some of his side eyes and everything. The intensity of the not moving his sort of point of vision at all slightly discomforted me, so maybe I'm responding to that, but top of my callback list is Rupert Friend, who I did not come into this expecting to come out of it with like, oh yeah, the actor that I know the least from all of these guys, he'd be the one that I would call back. But yeah, I thought that he gave a really solid audition there. This has been fascinating viewing. I would love it if like Daniel Craig's version of these specific auditions leaked so that we could compare what they did eventually go with to these guys. I'd be curious. I'm assuming that there are far more out there. Maybe this is just like one particular videotape that someone was lucky enough to come across and preserve for us. But yeah, very interesting. I do wonder if there's more to come, if there's more to leak at some point, because it's yeah, been a really fascinating viewing experience. This, I have really enjoyed this. Do let me know in the comment section below what your ranking is, best to worst, worst to best, whatever you want to do. I'm just curious to see like if other people have favorites. I imagine that Henry Cavill will be a bit of a favorite because you know, a lot of people would still love to see him as James Bond, but like I say, Rupert Friend was the very pleasant surprise for me in that grouping. I need to check out his filmography. Also below there are links to my various social medias, as well as the subscribe button and the Mrs. Bell notification button, so click both of those to stay up to date on future video uploads, and until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.